Welcome back to Fantasy Insider and tonight's preview of the AFL Finals action. Tonight we have Hawthorn taking on Geelong at the MCG in what is expected to be a reasonably close game. A non-elimination match tonight, but one that could possibly be impacted by some of the weather conditions and other things that are going on in Melbourne at the moment. As yesterday, I'm joined by Blake. We're just going to have a quick run through some of the thoughts on tonight.
Cool. Now, obviously, this is kind of speculative, Steve, but probably one of the biggest games of the season so far. When kind of creating your team, is there anything in particular that you are, any kind of specific strategy you're using for tonight's game, or?
It's going to be fairly similar to the way I approached last night. Obviously, last night Western Bulldogs were a big underdog and ended up pretty much blowing out West Coast. And that sort of contributed towards the success that we had last night. I finished fourth in the Draft Stars tournament. And there'll be a similar approach tonight where we kind of try and cover each of those outcomes, a Geelong blowout, a Hawthorn blowout, and a close game. Just making sure that we have reasonably risky but possible combinations of players for each of those outcomes.
Cool. And I know you were saying earlier, with tonight's game, well, obviously it's forecasted to have a bit of rain. Do you think that will play some part in creating your own team, or?
To some extent, I mean, it'll already be figured partly into the bookmakers' totals. So the bookmakers have it at about 155 points. Actually, the rain in Melbourne hasn't been quite perhaps as bad as expected, so it'll be interesting to see how that changes or if that changes in the run up to game time. It's possible that if the weather stays not as bad as expected, that the Fords might have a bit more value than our initial projections had them, and so that will be an adjustment that I make at the last minute based on the conditions.
Cool. So if the rain holds up, we're probably going to be looking at, I guess, putting a bit more money in your forwards. If the rain does keep falling, does that mean you'll be looking at stronger midfielders, or where do you think the points will be calculated?
Yeah, I mean, the situation, if it continues to rain, you're basically going to be looking at sort of the half forwards and half backs as potential options, as well as spending money on the midfield. So it changes from necessarily focusing on people who are going to score a lot of goals in the forwards to people who are going to be involved in the play more generally.
Any individual players you're going to be having in all of your lineups tonight, or any star players?
I mean, if we look at sort of the top 10 lineups that are generated out of the Cruncher, Sam Menegola comes up a lot. Sean Burgoyne comes up quite a bit as well. The other player, I guess, at Mark Blackhave's ruck for Geelong seems to feature a lot. There doesn't seem to be many other good options there.
That's a guess.
Yeah.
Any final advice on tonight's game?
I think just to make sure that you consider the possible stacks. So you're going to want to look at stacking forwards and midfields for both Geelong and Hawthorn. You're probably going to want to look at 5 to 7 player stacks, just to give you a bit of flexibility to keep the key players from the other team. And with that, I think we're going to call it a wrap for today's podcast. Join us again next time and enjoy the game. Good luck.